She's got 31 Democrats that are in Trump districts. She has an 18-seat majority. She just made them walk the plank on impeachment, which is going to be a very difficult political. And some
only
of the
two of them walked.
Okay, yeah, two of them.
She didn't make anyone do anything.
Fair enough, but they just, so she now needs to say, oh, see, you can work with President Trump, and we did something. This is the attempt to do this, but it doesn't pass the smell test. The president was the one who came up with the idea. He's the one who forced both Mexico and Canada to the table multiple times.
Exactly.
He's the one who went to the brink and said, blah, 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 this is it. And then he pressured the House into doing it. And Vice President Pence, in America First, we went around the country selling this thing. So President Trump deserves the credit.
What is that liberal element within the evangelical movement that he says?
Well, I mean, you look at the president's support among evangelicals, it tops 80%. If you are an evangelical that's been told, especially from folks on the right over and over again over the past decade, that we're going to do the following, and it doesn't happen, you've got a guy like Trump who went out on the campaign trail, made it very clear, particularly in the area of the judiciary, and said, these are the kind of judges I'm going to appoint, which is something that's very, very important to the evangelical community. And he fulfilled that. He's kept his word. And there are a lot of folks in the evangelical community who say, you know what? Yes, he is not a perfect vessel, just like so many other people in the Bible that God has chosen to bring.
Well, how is that a liberal element?
I mean, I think he's trying to show. I don't know entirely what he's saying. I think he's saying that there are people in the evangelical community who don't agree with us. Absolutely. I mean, in the days leading up to the election, a couple of my colleagues were asked to come to the Department of Homeland Security. We went down, and we were assured by them. If you remember, the narrative at the time was whether or not Trump would accept the outcome of the election and the legitimacy of the vote and all that kind of stuff. There was these questions about it. And so they were doing these briefings for us, and they offered them to the other side as well. And they were saying, look, this is how the elections work. We have full faith and confidence in the system, in the integrity, and we ask you to express confidence in the integrity of the system. It's so quick. Once Trump won, I think that was predicated on the fact they thought Hillary was going to win. They were concerned about us accepting the results. Once Hillary won, we started talking about Russia, Russia, Russia. Up until then, it was, hey, we got this thing under control. So, I mean, I think voters are results oriented, right? So when you go back and you just say, here's my excuse as to why it didn't happen. That's why Trump got elected, is that he cut through all the BS and said, I'm going to get it done. And then he actually did it. And we can argue the merits of, how the system works. But at the end of the day, voters look at politicians and say, you promised me the following, did you deliver, right? And so Trump's going around saying, I said I'd cut regulations, I said I'd cut taxes, I said I'd move the embassy, I said I'd get us out of the Paris Climate Agreement. I said, I did. And here are the results. Members of Congress are going to go back and say, let me give you an excuse why I didn't get something done. And whether or not that's correct or not, I think for most voters, they go, well, then I'm not voting for you again. I'll get somebody who can get it done. And again, this isn't I get it might have been over in the Senate, whatever. But at the end of the day, when Republicans controlled the House and controlled the Senate, things got done. Yeah.
Well,
and I think that's a compelling
argument.
From a purely political standpoint, I mean, and this isn't just a partisan thing. If you go down that list and you think about the groups and the constituencies that you're aiming for in an electorate, you've got veterans, you've got moms, you've got fathers, you've got working men.
Well, everybody's caught up in that.
You've got labor,
in that one tweet
right? So you think about it like labor, and you go into Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, you're really hitting key constituencies that are key in a presidential year. And I think that's one bill, never mind USMCA and how many jobs that's going to create.
Yeah.
But the difference is that when you go in the next few months and make your case to voters on why you either want to be reelected for President Trump or as a member of Congress, you're going to have to enumerate things that people can identify with and not some obscure thing. That bill alone, think about how many people are talking about parental leave. 3 months, men and women, when a child is born, whether naturally or through adoption. That's a big deal. I don't see it as an impasse. I mean, the Senate is controlled by the Republicans. Mitch McConnell can decide how he wants to run it in the same way that Nancy Pelosi ran the House. So McConnell at some point is going to say, hey, I've listened to your concerns and now we're moving forward. But ironically, before we can even talk about that, we haven't even gotten them sent over to the Senate. Because Pelosi is, I mean, I don't understand how you can tell the American people this is a very serious charge, this is a serious subject, and then say, but I might not send it over. Well, I mean, that.
And it passed in the House. It's not like she's sending over a document to just outline stuff.
But this is about, they've been talking about following the Constitution and the rule of law. And then Pelosi has the gall to say, I don't know, because I don't think the Senate, that's not her job.
Can I ask
She runs the House, not the Senate.
A quick question, and of course I'll open it up to the rest of the couch. But I'm just curious to know, because you see some recent polling which shows that north of 70% of Americans, regardless of political party, want to see witnesses in a Senate trial. They want to hear from some people.
Okay. I mean, unfortunately, that's not. There's a lot of things that people would like, but we ran the House. The House ran their process the way that they do. They called witnesses. The Republicans weren't afforded. I'm sure those 70%
well,
of the people.
They got a couple of witnesses.
No.
They didn't get who they wanted.
The House Republicans had a right to have a minority day. That was always the precedent in impeachment trials. They were denied that. And so I get that people want certain things, but look at this. Chuck Schumer in 1996 said that when it was Clinton's impeachment that there should be no witnesses. So that was his precedent then. The bottom line is Nancy Pelosi got to run the process in the House because she's the leader there, and Mitch McConnell gets to run it in the Senate. But the precedent is that the Senate doesn't have witnesses. The precedent is that the minority party, in this case the Republicans, should have had a minority day. And so it is what it is, and the Senate will follow exactly what. But for Pelosi and these other folks to run a ramrod this through the House and then start to dictate the terms to another body seems quite ridiculous.
Yeah, look, it's not the Senate's job to do the job that the House failed to do,
right,
which was going to court, battling it out with the executive branch, which is a separate branch of government that operates in a different way, so that the judicial system could decide whether the House Judiciary Committee has the right to call certain aides of the president to come and testify about and answer questions in front of the House members about what they want to hear. And so Mitch McConnell is saying, I run the Senate. I don't know why Nancy Pelosi is trying to boss me around and tell me what to do. And they want the Senate to now do the work that the House has not done. And Mitch McConnell's like, we have other things to get to.
I think the point that Katie's making can't be overstated for viewers who don't fully appreciate this. In the past, witnesses have decided not to go, and the Congress, the House, went to court to compel them to. They chose not to do that.
Right. Didn't want to prolong the process.
Well, they
said they wanted to get this along quickly.
Yeah, but that's how
before.
That is the process.
If you're going to talk about precedent, though, when Bill Clinton was impeached, Trent Lott, who was the Republican head of the Senate, and Tom Daschle, who was the Democratic head, sat down together in a bipartisan manner and hashed out the rules. They negotiated and they hashed out how they would have witnesses. They didn't come on the Senate floor. They interviewed them at an off-site location.
Are you saying that? Are you criticizing the fact that
after they
it hasn't
received
happened?
the articles?
Exactly.
Oh, but they had a process in place. And
After
actually,
they received the articles.
right when the House voted, I listened to Tom Daschle and Trent Lott be interviewed by NPR this week. They called each other immediately. And said, we need to figure this out. Chuck Schumer sent Mitch McConnell a letter weeks ago that Mitch McConnell never responded to. Then he sent him another one this week, and he's now asking him over Christmas to think about how they can do this together.
So
Nancy Pelosi is going to send the articles to the Senate. She just wants some rules in place, as
Have
the
you talked
precedent
with her?
is.
Do you know this
she
for
said
a
that
fact?
publicly, Harris. The precedent was with the Bill Clinton impeachment.
And in this case, McConnell did sit down with him and talk. He said that they had a productive meeting. At the end of the day, though, McConnell has listened to his concerns. He is the leader
And
of the
just
elected.
rejecting them.
Well, but you don't know that. They've said that they've sat down, that they've had it. Okay.
Well,
at the end of the day, he is sitting down. He is having a thing, but he is the Senate leader. And if that's how Lott and Daschle did at the time, that's great.
And
it's not her job. Her job is to say, our House has done. The House has done its job. Here you go, Senate.
Well,
that's
legally,
how laws work.
Legally,
same thing.
she's allowed to do this, Sean.
Okay, fair enough. But here's the thing that I just want to make this clear at this point. In the late 80s, the judicial nomination of Robert Bork to the Supreme Court changed the trajectory and the face of judicial nominations going forward. I believe the weaponization of impeachment right now will change how impeachment goes forward. This is going to become a tool that is used over and over again by the opposition party of the House if the White House is controlled by a different party. Mark my word, this is now the new norm.